Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome to video 1 for my 2019 Halloween series. So excited to start with this. So I am using Distress watercolor paper. I have the smooth side facing up at the moment, and I used my anti-static powder tool on it, wiped off the excess, and then I am inking up Simon Says Stamp's Spiderweb background stamp. This was released last year, I think. Everything I'm using is like previously released things. There will be, videos with brand new products, etc. But I always like to dig into the stash when it comes to the Halloween series. So I inked it up with clear embossing ink, and then I am coating this with detail white embossing powder. Once everything is coated, I can go in and start melting all of this with my heat tool. And since I'm using like background stamps, so embossing the entire like surface of this panel, I basically just melt the first half and then rotate it, melt the rest so that I'm not burning my fingers. I think I've mentioned this in other videos. I try to be very hyper aware when using my heat tool, whether you have this one, which is, highly recommend. I've used many over the last, 15 plus years. This is definitely the best one. I link to it with all my supplies. But regardless, like these tools get very, very hot. I try to be hyper aware of it. I always try to have it unplugged when I'm not using it, etc. Because it just, yeah. Anywho, biggest thing though is just try not to burn yourself. So got the whole background melted, made sure there was no grainy areas. It's all smooth. And then I just put it in my splat box, and I am going to use Distress Oxide sprays because these make for the quickest, easiest backgrounds. So because they've been sitting for a while, you need to shake them side to side, kind of shake them like a bell. That is what like Ranger and Tim Holtz recommends, to shake them side to side like so. Because if you shake them up and down, there's a good chance that the liquid can start like coming out the edges of the nozzles, etc. So you just literally like ring it like a bell, and it shakes it all up, and it's good to go. So I shook these really well, and I chose cracked pistachio, peacock feathers, and wilted violet. I cannot wait until the new Distress Oxide sprays, like the set that was just released, comes out, because there's like black soot and, all these other colors that I can't wait. But I was actually waiting to make this card with those, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to use these colors because they're fun. And then when my order with the newest colors comes out or gets here, I'll do something similar, or who knows. But yeah, fun times. So I used these 3, sprayed them, and then dried everything, and then I splattered it with water, let it sit for a minute, picked that up with my paper towel, so I've got the nice splatter effect going on as well. And then I'm going to let that dry. For my sentiment, I'm using the CZ Design HOLLA wafer die. This is not, I get a lot of grief when I use this wafer die. This is not a Spanish word, like hola is the Spanish word with 1 L. This is just a slang term to say hello. That's what this means. I've used it on other cards. I get a kick out of it. I think it's cute. But I thought it would be cute to use it for a Halloween card, just get extra uses out of it. So I die cut it from black cardstock, and I also die cut it from Simon's black glitter cardstock. And then I'm going to stack all these together to give it that extra dimension. So I'm going to have 2 layers of the black cardstock, and then I'm just going to top it with the die cut of the black glitter cardstock. And I just stack them all together with Simon's Craft Tacky glue. So once I've got that done, I've got kind of the main portion of my sentiment. And then I pulled out the Friendly Ghosts wafer dies, and I die cut them from white cardstock. And then I cut little handles, just little scraps of white cardstock here, and I'm just taping them onto each of these little ghost die cuts, just with some washi tape. Doesn't have to be perfect. I just need something to hold onto these because I wanted to heat emboss them. So I was thinking about, die cutting them from white glitter cardstock, like all different options. And then I remembered, of course, that I have glow-in-the-dark embossing powder here that I just love. So I thought it would be fun to coat these ghosts with that glow-in-the-dark embossing powder. So I added those handles, and then I used a little bit of Post-it tape just to keep my fingers from getting covered in the embossing ink. And I'm just pressing these into Simon's clear embossing ink, and then I'm going to coat them with this Lawn Fawn glow-in-the-dark embossing powder. I've tried other brands. They all are pretty much the same as far as I'm concerned. I know WOW Embossing makes one as well that I have, and it works pretty much exact same. They all have that like this like yellowish greenish tint because glow in the dark just has that tint to it, and they work just fabulous. So I coated all of these with that embossing powder, and then I'm melting them with my heat tool, and this is where these little handles I created came in so handy because the entire image is coated, you know, all the way to the edges with the embossing powder, plus they're tiny little images. So after I melted all of them with my heat tool, I'm going to peel off the little handles. And because part of the handles as well as part of the washi tape got pressed into the clear embossing ink, those picked up embossing powder, obviously. So those spots just on the very edges of all these die cuts leave little like kind of rough edges. So the easiest way to get rid of that is after removing the handles, I just quickly hit those spots with my heat tool, being aware of my fingers, of course, and it just kind of melts it back into everything else and just smooths out any of those little rough edges. So did that with those. And then to complete this sentiment, so it's not just saying HOLLA, I pulled out the CZ Design HOLLAween stamp set, which of course is fitting. They're all kind of meant to go together. So all I did was stamp the happy, and then there's the remaining part of the ween. Sometimes my mentality is that of a 12-year-old. Anyway, stamp those with clear embossing ink onto the scrap of black cardstock. And I'm actually using Wendy Vecchi's Garden Patina embossing powder. It went really well with these Oxide colors. And there is the HOLLA word in that stamp set, and there's also a coordinating die for it. But I really wanted to use this separate HOLLA wafer die because I like the style of the font and everything. So to each their own. You know, I used this set last year again. I'll try to remember to link to it, hopefully. Last year or the year before when I got it, and I think it's just so cute. But this time I decided to kind of mix things up, you know, get some different ideas going. So after I had heated both those little sentiments, I die cut the ween part with the coordinating wafer die. The little happy portion, I just trimmed down with my paper trimmer, so it'll be a little strip, which you'll see in a second. And I also trimmed down my background, just trimmed off the edges, so it's a bit smaller than an A2 card front. So once I got that trimmed down, I'm going to start adhering all of these elements onto my card front. So I adhered that strip with the happy word, and then I adhered the sentiment, but I didn't press it down yet because I wanted to tuck this larger ghost kind of behind a portion of it. So adhered him into place, adhered the sentiment, and then adhered the remaining two little ghosts and the rest of the sentiment with that craft tacky glue. And then I can flip over the card front, trim off the excess of that black cardstock with my scissors. And then for the card base, I decided to go with black cardstock. I was originally going to go with white, but then it's Halloween. So I thought I would, you know, work outside the box for once and not do a white card base. So with a black card base on the inside, I use a white gel pen or a metallic gel pen when I'm writing to the recipient. That way you can see it. Or depending on what I'm doing, sometimes I will line the inside of the card with different colors of cardstock or white cardstock, whatever. But with this, I purposely chose the black because I wanted to stamp this web with those Oxide inks, and I thought it would look really cool on the black. So I have the spiderweb background face up here on my desk again. And I'm making it with the same colors of the sprays I use, but this time in the Distress Oxide inks. This is where the Oxides have the advantage over regular Distress inks because they have that pigment in them, so they'll show up on dark cardstock. I didn't get the most perfect impression because I was kind of just frazzled by this point with just kids yelling and screaming and all that fun stuff. However, I'm okay with that. It doesn't need to be perfect. I left it out and re-inked it up again, just, you know, tapping the ink pads randomly kind of on this background. And once it's inked up, I'm actually going to stamp my envelope with this as well. And this is just one of Simon's Audrey blue envelopes. I thought it would look really cute and tied all together to have the spider web, you know, stamped on the front of the envelope as well. So inked it all up, pressed this envelope into it. And then once I peeled off the envelope, it's like, yes, this is fun. This is why I do this Halloween series, because it's just fun. I love it. So stamp my envelope, and then for the inside of the card, I have the spider web, and then I just die cut the little friendly ghost again, just with white cardstock, and then adhered those into place. And then I'm going to adhere my card front onto the card base again with just the craft tacky glue. And then once that's adhered as a final, little bit of bling, gotta add a little bit more, even though I've got, the black glitter cardstock for the sentiment. I pulled out these Studio Katia Jade crystals. Just the color of them went really well with this background because they're kind of, you know, almost like that peacock feather look, but then with the iridescence, and they were too perfect. So I sprinkled those kind of all around the card front here and adhered them into place with the craft tacky glue. And that finished off video number 1 for my 2019 Halloween series. So stay tuned. There'll be tons more coming randomly throughout, you know, Christmas cards, Thanksgiving cards, random cards, all that stuff. So as always, there'll be a link below the video to my blog post. I'll have a supply list with links to everything I used, so you can check that out in the description box below if you are interested. And here's the glow in the dark. I went in my closet, turned all the lights off, took pictures so you guys could see it. So yeah, really fun. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye!